My boyfriend said he was going to visit his mother's grave and didn't let me come along. Emily told me that he had actually gone to celebrate his ex-girlfriend's birthday. I was shocked. Good things always come together.
Welcome to listen to my full sweet love series novel. I'm the blogger and I'm Twilight's novel. Now let's start the main story.
While I was cleaning the house, Emily sent me a photo. My entire back turned cold when I saw it. The coldest part was my heart. In the photo, a man and a woman were walking arm in arm into the city's most luxurious restaurant. The man was my boyfriend, David. The woman was David's ex-girlfriend, his white moonlight, Luna. They looked great together, but they were doing something despicable. I wasn't wrong to say that. David had told me he was going to visit his mother's grave and wanted to have a private talk with her. I had offered to go with him, but he refused. I thought he was going through something difficult and needed to vent. But no, he wasn't facing a problem. He was having an affair. I didn't know when Luna had returned, but I knew she had taken David's heart the moment she came back. Recently, he had been leaving early and coming home late, always saying he was working overtime. Even on weekends, he had to go to the company. I knew he was busy, but I didn't know he was already sneaking around with her. Even after 2 years apart, she still had a place in his heart. I was planning our future, but it turned out there was no place for me in his. How ridiculous. Emily sent me 2 more photos. In the first one, David was putting a birthday hat on Luna. They were looking at each other, smiling, as if they were a sweet couple. The second photo was even more direct. David gave her a birthday kiss. How long had it been since David last kissed me? For a moment, I even envied Luna. After 2 years, this man still loved her. As I thought about it, I felt a chill in the corner of my eye. When I wiped it, I realized I was crying. As adults, we know when to leave some dignity. But breaking up without saying it, neglecting, avoiding, lying and deceiving, these are the tactics of scumbags. David used visiting his mother's grave as an excuse to celebrate Luna's birthday. He was the worst of the worst. Such a person didn't deserve my tears anymore. I had been with David for 2 years. He had told me about his past, and I accepted it. I wanted to give him a home in this big city. I knew he cried in his sleep when he dreamed of his mother. I wanted to be with him forever because he said I was different from Luna. I wouldn't leave him. I used to believe everything he said, but now it just made me sick. Today was a good day. Visiting a grave turned into a birthday celebration. Since it was a birthday, it had to be done right. I sneered and wiped the tears from the corner of my eye. Half an hour later, I arrived at the restaurant. I had put on makeup and wore a black dress. It looked more like I was going to a funeral than a birthday party. It was a tribute to my dead love. The restaurant had a great atmosphere, with few people and a pianist playing a soothing melody. David and Luna were seated further inside, and the waiter led me to them. I arrived just in time. David was lighting the candles and preparing to capture the moment on his phone. Luna, like a little girl, clasped her hands and closed her eyes, ready to blow out the candles. I didn't bring a birthday gift, which was impolite. To make up for it, I decided to blow out the candles for her. I blew out all the candles before Luna could. There were 18 candles, symbolizing her 18th birthday. How romantic. The sudden appearance of an extra person startled both of them. I smiled innocently at David. Didn't you say you were going to visit your mother's grave? What are you doing here? The atmosphere turned cold, and I made it even creepier. It felt like we had moved from the living world to the underworld. David couldn't save face anymore. He pulled a long face and started lecturing me. Isabella, what are you trying to do? All you do is suspect me. Do you know this is her birthday cake? It only happens once a year, and you ruined it. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said with a sinister smile. If I could hide a knife in it, I would have sliced them both into pieces. Luna immediately changed her expression and smiled at me. I knew what she was thinking. She was about to show off her green tea skills. You must be Isabella, right? David often talks about you. Please don't misunderstand. There's really nothing between us. We're just old friends who haven't seen each other in a long time. He only celebrated my birthday with me because I was alone. Please don't misunderstand. Her skills were top-notch. She was like a delicate white lotus soaked in green tea. No wonder David fell for her. I sat next to David, and he reluctantly moved inward. Yeah, when you dumped him for a rich guy back then, he was so pitiful, crying like a dog. David's face turned green. That kind of humiliation was something no man could forget. That's enough. Go home now. David whispered harshly and pushed me. I wiped my arm with a napkin in disgust. It was so gross. Luna started crying. She was unleashing her ultimate weapon. A woman's tears were the best weapon, especially when the target was a fool like David. What happened back then was my fault. Whether David was rich or not, I didn't care. I was just too stupid to take care of myself. David's career was on the rise, and I didn't want to distract him, so She left her sentence hanging, pretending to bear the sadness alone. I couldn't help but laugh. Isabella, don't go too far. David was still defending her. He was blind. You're the one who's gone too far. All the bitterness and grievances I had held back for years poured out. David, don't forget who stayed by your side during those tough years. When you worked late, I waited for you at home, no matter how late it was. I reheated the food over and over. When you went out for business dinners, I made you hangover soup. When you had a stomachache at night, I walked miles in the snow to find an open pharmacy. I saved every penny. Was it for a dog? I didn't know how to enjoy a nice restaurant like this? You say I've gone too far? You really thought I was a fool. David couldn't look me in the eye. His gaze wandered everywhere. You're full of lies and have no bottom line. I've had enough of this life. David, Isabella, officially announced that we're breaking up. After saying all this, I felt relieved. Breaking up was liberation. I could finally live for myself. David looked at me in disbelief, his lips trembling. How ridiculous. There was no audience, so who was he performing for? It turned out that what was blown out wasn't just Luna's birthday candles but also my relationship with David. I quickly packed up all his things, and David angrily took away all the memories we once had. I rearranged the house, even putting out the scented candles David didn't like. Emily brought 5 pounds of the city's most popular crayfish to celebrate my new beginning. The sadness in my heart had dissipated, but the tears in my eyes still completed their ritual. Are you crying because of the spice or the anger? Emily pushed the peeled crayfish toward me as a form of comfort. I'm crying for the youth I wasted, okay? I ate the crayfish fiercely, still refusing to admit defeat. All right. David is like a grasshopper in late autumn. He won't last long. My phone lit up with a message from Emily, a Baidu link. I opened the link with confusion, and a familiar handsome face appeared on the screen. I rolled my eyes. Do I really need you to show me his profile? I had known the man on the screen for 8 years. We talked for at least half an hour every day. I knew more about him than what was on Baidu. I'm not showing you this for you to look at him, okay? Emily blinked mischievously. Do you think Luna is a fool who would fall for someone like David? She came back for Alexander. Alexander, my senior and boss, was a rising star in the tech industry. When I was a freshman, he was a graduate student. Because we had the same mentor, that's how we started our journey of knowing each other. Since I met him, I had witnessed his meteoric rise. Not only was he talented, but his family also had a long history in business. He was a true heir to a wealthy family. Luna's appetite was growing. Alexander had a project with a Nordic company, and Luna's group was also involved. I heard Luna has resigned and will probably apply to your company soon. Well, the gold digger was upgrading her game. Even playing the long-distance love pursuit? To see Alexander, she quit her job and went through 28 days of quarantine. She was really determined this time. And then, my attention was on the crayfish, and I didn't understand the path Emily was pointing out. She pinched my face with her oily hand. Isabella, if I were David, I'd lie to you too. Why don't you take advantage of your proximity and make a move on Alexander? Work hard and get him before Luna does. Alexander is a top-tier catch, much better than David, who's practically expired goods. He's not even worthy of being compared to Alexander. Whenever David was mentioned, Emily couldn't hide her anger. She must have been holding it in for a long time, and now that I had broken up, she finally let it out. Watching Emily drink beer and curse, I could only nod along. Yes. Starting tomorrow, I'll work hard and make sure to win Alexander over. making him roll in my bed. After a lot of drunken nonsense, I finally managed to calm Emily down. The next morning, I thought the matter was over, but I received a death recording from Emily. It was all the bold statements I had made about winning Alexander over, and it was unbearable to listen to. "Are you crazy? You recorded my drunken ramblings." "I don't care. We've worked with Alexander before, and I have his WeChat. You have 1 month. If you don't make a move by then, I'll send it to him myself." Before I could unleash my fury, Emily disappeared. Damn it, was she forcing me into this? Was I really going to make a move on my boss? Help me. Luckily, Emily was busy with her new job and temporarily ignored me for the next 2 weeks. Although I still resented David, I couldn't use my feelings as a tool for revenge. As for Alexander, he was great, but I had never thought about a future with him. Even if he were standing in front of me right now, my heart would remain calm. One day, a sudden rainstorm blocked everyone's way home. Alexander, who had a luxury car to pick him up, didn't have to struggle like us ordinary workers, constantly refreshing the carpool app. "We're really from 2 different worlds," I muttered to myself with a smile, also opening the carpool app. "Isabella, let me give you a ride." I looked up and met Alexander's confident, handsome face. With a comical gesture, I pointed at myself to confirm. Alexander held back a laugh and nodded. My response was a genuine refusal. "No need to trouble yourself. I'll just take a carpool." I waved my hand repeatedly, as if every cell in my body was resisting. Having the big boss drive me home? That was too much for an ordinary worker like me. Alexander tapped on my screen, pointing at the message that said, "There are 313 people ahead of you." He asked me again. Faced with the evidence, I shamelessly chose to accept the boss's sudden kindness. The car's soundproofing was excellent. If it weren't for the moving windshield wipers, I would have doubted that there was a rainstorm tonight. "How's work been lately?" Just as I was about to nod with a standard response, Alexander's next sentence shut me down. "After the breakup, it hasn't affected you, has it?" Wow. For the first time, I realized that men could be gossipy too. "No, I'm very professional." Trying to test me? No way. The day of the year-end bonus was approaching, and I had to be careful of the boss's traps. "Why are you so nervous?" "I'm just chatting casually." The man's crisp laughter rang out in the car, and for a moment, it even sounded a bit doting. I awkwardly responded with a fake smile, and the atmosphere in the car became a bit awkward. Just then, a red light saved us. In the stopped car, Alexander pressed the music play button. Richard Clayderman's emotional piece was soothing and lively. It was my favorite, Les Chagrin's Ublies. "Do you know the Chinese name of this piece?" Alexander asked casually. Testing me? The corners of my mouth were already raised. I was confident. I had been playing the piano since I was 4, and I could play Bach and Chopin with ease. A piece by Richard Clayderman couldn't possibly stump me. Besides, I had played this piece before. Is it called Forgotten Sorrows? I was actually very sure, but it was better to be humble in front of the boss. "Yes, your ex-boyfriend didn't deserve you. It's best to forget him after the breakup." So, the master was waiting for me here. I smiled awkwardly, not knowing how to respond. Saying David was bad would make me seem petty and judgmental. But if I said he was good? If he were good, flies could be butterflies. Alexander drove well, and we soon arrived at my neighborhood. "Mr. Alexander, you can stop at the entrance. Our neighborhood doesn't allow unfamiliar cars in." "It's fine, I'm a resident." With just one sentence, he shocked me. When Alexander's car automatically passed the recognition system, I felt a wave of Versailles light from capitalism. "Which building do you live in?" I had no choice but to give him my address. I had rented this high-end neighborhood for David's convenience. I had heard that the average price here was only slightly lower than the CBD. "Mr. Alexander, where do you live?" Alexander generously gave his address and even politely invited me to visit sometime. When he mentioned Building 16, I realized the gap between us. It was the most expensive building in the neighborhood. Luxury among luxury. The wealthy were truly wealthy. Buying cars and houses was as ordinary as buying a pair of gloves for them. "We're here." The car stopped steadily in the parking garage under my building. At that moment, I realized how big the gap between us was. It was said that a parking spot here could buy a Mercedes, and the spots in Building 16 cost an extra $100,000. When my lease was up, I definitely wouldn't waste money renting such a high-end place again. The blessing of being neighbors with Mr. Alexander was something I couldn't afford. Thank you. I'll treat you to dinner sometime. I politely grabbed my bag, ready to leave. Which day? Alexander also opened his car door and stood by the car, waiting for me to give a date. Wait, I was just being polite. Did he take it seriously? Looking at Alexander's expression, I couldn't detect any hint of a joke. After we finish this project, I'll arrange it properly. All right, I'll be waiting. Somehow, I had promised Alexander a meal. In the elevator, I started reviewing where I had gone wrong to make the boss think I was serious about treating him to dinner. As soon as I got home, my phone regained signal. A delayed WeChat message popped up. Losing you was his loss. You'll definitely meet someone who truly cherishes you. Unexpectedly, the first proper comfort after the breakup came from my boss. Tonight, he had helped me avoid the rainstorm and warmed my heart. Facing the screen, I said a thank you he couldn't hear and then laughed happily. As the saying goes, when love fails, work must succeed. Our department had taken on a big project, and everyone was excited. As the boss, Alexander naturally had many things to handle personally. But he still appeared in our meeting room on time every day, showing great concern for the current progress. Since I was the project's primary responsible person, he often communicated with me. Besides the public meetings in the conference room, we also had lunch together every day. He gave me many constructive suggestions and even helped me solve some complicated issues. With such a leader guiding me, I naturally worked like I was on steroids. Soon, the project was basically completed, and we received preliminary approval from the client. With the work done, Alexander personally approved our entire team's vacation. Oh, there's one more thing. Holding the vacation slip, I turned back to look at Alexander. The meal you owe me, is it time to pay up? I thought it was just a joke, but he had remembered it for so long. No wonder he was so successful. He never let even the smallest benefit slip by. Learn from him, that's the awareness a capitalist should have. Mr. Alexander was already very considerate. How could I call him a capitalist? In just a few seconds, my mind had gone through all sorts of imaginations. So, which day? Tomorrow night. If you don't mind, come to my place. I generously invited him, but Alexander seemed a bit surprised. He repeated, word by word, to confirm. Tomorrow night, I'll come to your place? Yes, we're neighbors, right? Come at 6 p.m. After dinner, you can just go downstairs and go home. Alexander seemed to understand what I really meant. Yes, it was for convenience. All right, see you tomorrow at 6. He gave an okay gesture and prepared to leave. Just as I touched the doorknob, I remembered something important. Oh, Mr. Alexander, do you have any dietary restrictions? Alexander gently shook his head. Nothing's off limits. I'll eat whatever you prepare. Great, I liked men who weren't picky. Because there were indeed a lot of things at home that he needed to personally eliminate. The next evening, looking at the feast I had prepared, I washed my hands with satisfaction. There were deep-sea oyster sashimi, freshly grilled medium-rare Japanese-style steak, and a top-tier king crab steaming in a large pot. Each dish was made with the finest ingredients. Of course, if I were eating alone, a convenience store fried food set would be my limit. I had ordered these a month ago. Originally, I had planned to celebrate David's 25th birthday, so I used his ID to grab a birthday special deal. I had already paid, so the items arrived on time. Now that I saw through that guy, I wouldn't let his cheap mouth ruin these delicacies. Unlike other products, food wasn't easy to resell. After much thought, perhaps treating the boss was the best way to honor these ingredients. At 5:58 p.m., the doorbell rang on time. The wealthy young master was indeed polite. Not too early, not too late, just right. I was just thinking about what to drink. Mr. Alexander, you're really prescient. I took the ice wine Alexander handed me and gave him a pair of slippers. David's things had long been cleared out, and these slippers were bought from the supermarket that afternoon. Alexander casually removed the tag, a smile on his lips. Good, this was a nice start. Is there anything I can do? He was dressed casually today, with just a hoodie under his coat. At this moment, Alexander really seemed like a friend of the same age, not the confident boss from the office. No, everything's ready. When Alexander followed me to the dining table and saw the feast, he was stunned. Now I know where your money goes. No wonder I never see you carrying designer bags. Your most luxurious indulgence is your stomach. A small joke set the mood perfectly. Since I didn't usually drink wine at home, I didn't know how to use the corkscrew. Alexander didn't say anything but gently took it from me. He carefully twisted the corkscrew, a faint smile on his lips. It was just a meal. Why was the boss so happy? I almost blurted that out, but the pressure cooker's alert saved me. When I brought out the king crab, the meal was complete. Compared to the original plan, there was one less person and one less birthday cake. But I was quite satisfied with the current setup. Except, the phone rang 4 times after I hung up, but it kept ringing. Even Alexander noticed. He put down his utensils and signaled that I could answer the call. It's been ringing several times. It must be urgent. Fine, since I couldn't turn it off, I had to deal with it myself. I walked to the living room and finally answered the phone. It's my birthday today, and you didn't even wish me a happy birthday. Through the phone, I could almost smell David's strong alcohol breath. Are you home? I want to see you. I'm so lonely, I miss you so much. Miss you, my foot. I'm not home. I went back to my hometown. On this day every year, you always took time off to be with me. David must have been drunk. Otherwise, he wouldn't have forgotten that we had already broken up. It seemed I needed to teach him a lesson. Today is the 30th anniversary of my third aunt's death. Our whole family is here to pay our respects. Oh, you said today is your birthday? What a coincidence. Such a good day, isn't it? David, I suggest you drink less. Otherwise, with this attitude, you might not even outlive my third aunt. I really didn't have the patience to listen to David's stuttering accusations, so I hung up gracefully. Then, I decisively blocked his number. I smiled smugly, completely ignoring the person standing behind me. Alexander was leaning against the wall, watching me for who knows how long. Mr. Alexander, why are you eavesdropping on my phone call? I muttered my dissatisfaction, but since he was the boss, I had to save face. Sorry, I apologize. The man straightened up, walked over to me, and sincerely apologized. Now I was at a loss. But as a secret admirer who's terrified of the girl I like getting back with her ex, I really couldn't resist my curiosity. Wow, this guy used a whole string of nouns, and my brain couldn't process it at first. Only after I carefully dissected it word by word did I understand what he meant. Alexander was straightforward and openly admitted it. Isabella, can I officially pursue you? I was completely speechless. The boss's pursuit came out of nowhere, and I ended up eating twice as much as usual. Seeing how full I was, Alexander took the initiative to wash the dishes. I rubbed my eyes, washed my face, and returned to the kitchen. Only then did I realize that everything that had just happened was real. My boss, the great CEO Alexander, was washing dishes in my 25-square-meter loft? This adorable contrast made me turn on silent mode and secretly take a few photos. Is there anything else? Alexander wiped his hands, smiling. I quickly waved my hand, refusing the CEO's offer to do more housework. Then I'll head out first. After eating and cleaning up, he left while it was still early. It was like a textbook example of how to spend time with the opposite sex. He put on his coat and insisted on leaving me in the elevator. As the floor numbers rose, my mood shifted again. Alexander's confession played on a loop in my mind. He said he liked me and was a secret admirer. It was so shocking. The elevator door opened, and my phone lit up. Without looking, I instinctively thought it was a message from Alexander. Was I crazy? I deliberately delayed opening it, but I still had to answer the phone first. After aimlessly procrastinating for about 10 minutes, I finally opened my phone. To be precise, I was forced to answer the phone. Why didn't you reply to my message? Are you home yet? The man on the phone sounded a bit worried, so I quickly opened WeChat. Sure enough, It was him asking if I was home. I went to the bathroom as soon as I got back and didn't bring my phone. I lied to save face. The other end laughed after getting the answer he wanted. Eat too much and feel sick, did you? No, I just washed my face. I kept lying, not even realizing my tone sounded like I was cooing. Next time we meet, you don't need to wear makeup. You look better without it. My heart was happy, but my mouth was still sharp. What can I do? I'm naturally a little rebel. Everyone wears makeup at work. How do you remember what I look like? Yesterday, your lipstick was a nude shade. The day before it was orange. His precise details defeated me. I had no control over the conversation anymore. Isabella, think about what I said today. I'm serious about pursuing you. I responded in a voice as soft as a mosquito's hum. That night, I confronted my ex who came looking for trouble and seemed to have gained an unexpected next. Blushing, I ended up rolling around in bed before falling asleep. After the holiday, everyone returned to work. I heard the person coming for an interview today used to be a VP at Kona. A VP applying for an executive assistant position? Isn't that a step down? Who knows? Maybe it's not about the job. I went to the HR department on the 17th floor to clear my leave and overheard this in the restroom. Kona's headquarters are in Northern Europe. Looks like it's an old acquaintance. Sure enough, I saw Luna in the waiting area, dressed in all white. Finally, she showed up. A top-tier sea queen chasing love across thousands of miles. This scene had to be captured. I casually grabbed a cup from the pantry and subtly brought her into the frame. The sunlight is so nice today, and the company's coffee is even better. I posted it on my social media, visible to only one person. As expected, I soon received a barrage of messages from David. Looking at the mix of texts and voice messages, I didn't respond. About 5 minutes later, an unknown number called. Pretending not to know who it was, I answered politely. David on the other end sounded frantic, demanding to know what was going on. Oh, you sent me a message? Oh my, I forgot to delete you? How unlucky. Normally, the arrogant David would argue with me, but right now, he was too focused on the fact that his white moonlight was here for an interview to dare challenge me. Isabella, please. I saw Luna in your post. Why is she at your company? What's going on? What photo? Even though I knew he was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, I avoided the point and kept stringing him along. The photo you just posted. She said she was going for an interview today, but why is she at your company? I didn't notice. But I did take a photo near the HR department earlier. I'm not sure about the details. Get anxious to death. By the way, I've deleted you. Don't harass me anymore. Then, I hung up without hesitation and blocked David on WeChat. After greeting my colleagues, I sat quietly in the HR department. About 15 minutes later, I saw David rushing in, looking disheveled. Calculating the time from his company to here, it was about right. He was really panicking. As they say, it's better to arrive at the right time than to arrive early. Just as David arrived, Luna's interview ended. The HR personally escorted her out, and both looked like they had a great conversation. Well, if I could hire someone with VP skills for a secretary's salary, I'd be happy too. In the three-way standoff, it was a pity I didn't get to witness the drama I was hoping for. Luna, the sea queen who had cultivated her skills for 1,000 years, instantly reacted. Her reddened eyes and trembling lips could have landed her the lead role in an old melodrama. The strong, beautiful heroine. No one but Luna herself could pull it off. Isabella, I never said there was anything ambiguous between David and me. It's you who's been misunderstanding me. Now that I'm back, I just want to start from scratch in a company with a future. Why are you dragging me into this mess? If you really can't forget David, go apologize and make up with him. Don't drag me into this muddy water. Her logic was clear, her stance firm, and paired with her innocent little face. Any random passerby would immediately side with Luna. As more people gathered to watch, Luna's performance became more intense. David, I hope you can make it clear to Isabella that there's really nothing between us, right? Looking at Luna, David finally caught on. His white moonlight was out of reach, so he had to try to keep his ex-girlfriend. I just realized your good intentions today. I forgive you. Let's be good together. Forgive you, my foot. Do you think you're the top player in the game? You're really playing dirty. The one who should apologize is you. As the voices of Mr. Alexander rang out from behind, the crowd automatically made way. Alexander gently placed his hand on my shoulder, and an invisible force instantly enveloped me. Looking at the man in front of me, David was still confused, but Luna was already glaring coldly. Her ultimate target was now embracing her defeated rival, something no one could accept. Coming to my company without reason and making my girlfriend apologize to you. Since when is that acceptable? The moment the words girlfriend came out, the surroundings erupted. When did you start dating? I didn't know. David, slow on the uptake, immediately turned to me for answers. Looking at his self-righteous expression, I was so annoyed. On the same good day as your third aunt's anniversary. I didn't hold back, directly hitting David's sore spot. At that moment, he was both angry and speechless. Even though he knew I was deliberately provoking him, since he was on my turf, he could only swallow his pride. Alexander's presence was undeniable. He brought up the issue again. It's a misunderstanding. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm accompanying my friend for an interview. At this point, David had no choice but to use Luna as his shield. Luna, who had always used others as her pawns, never imagined she'd end up shooting herself in the foot. Since David had admitted it, Alexander took the opportunity to wrap things up. All right, I officially inform your friend that she didn't pass the interview. Luna's mouth fell open, losing her composure for the first time. Ha ha ha, I was laughing hysterically inside, but I kept a straight face. Oh, and Manager Kai, from now on, my assistant position will only be open to male candidates. The HR manager nodded awkwardly, completely ignoring Luna's pleading look. Also, make sure to reissue the company's regulations this afternoon. Especially the one about not prohibiting office romances. Change it to, our company advocates for freedom in relationships and does not exclude any form of legal marital relationship. Small cheers erupted, and some people even held hands immediately. Boss, are you leading by example in spreading the love? An excited senior employee couldn't help but joke. No, I remember this regulation was changed 3 years ago. You all just didn't notice. 3 years ago. Wasn't that when I joined the company? No way, did he have this plan back then? I glanced over, and Alexander met my gaze without hesitation. He even nodded, admitting it. Oh no. I'm speechless again. Just when I thought Emily had forgotten about my drunken vow, she suddenly showed up at my place. After finding no trace of a man living there, she pulled out her trump card. You're moving at a snail's pace. Looks like I'll have to give you a push. I snatched her phone and had to come up with a quick lie. Who said there's no progress? We've gone public. Gone public. Emily looked at me suspiciously, not buying my lie at all. I don't believe you. Is Alexander a vegetarian? If you've gone public, why hasn't he whisked you away? And it's late at night, and there's not even a single intimate call. Do you think I'm a kid? Emily was way better at reading men than I was. Everything I said, she shot down. Fine, I'll just have to pull out the killer move. Can I show you the rolling around photos? But I can share the dishwashing one. Calmly, I opened my phone and sent her a picture, mimicking her style. Emily opened the picture skeptically and immediately zoomed in. She even went to the dining area, tiptoeing to check the feasibility. Finally, she seemed to believe me, for now. All right, I'll give you some credit. She happily ate hot pot at my place and then left. Just when I thought the test was over, Emily had one last trick up her sleeve. The doorbell rang, and I went to answer it, confused. It was Alexander. Emily, standing beside me, gave a mischievous explanation and then grabbed her bag and fled. The dishwashing progress is too slow. I'll have to give you a hand. My IQ peaked at that moment, and I seemed to understand Emily's intention. Just kill me. Is your bed big enough? If it's too small, you can't roll around properly. With only Alexander and me left in the room, he held back a laugh and played the recording of my drunken, bold declaration again. I couldn't stand the embarrassment of my social death moment anymore, so I grabbed the phone and quickly hit pause. I don't like vegetarian food, but a balanced diet is healthy. I shyly sat on my stool at home, and when I looked up, I met Alexander's starry gaze. Oh no, I'm really falling for him. Feelings surged at that moment, and Alexander gradually leaned down. Beep! The electronic lock clicked open, and I instinctively hugged the man in front of me. David, with a flushed face, was slumped over a middle-aged man in a chauffeur's uniform. The password is correct, but am I in the right place? The driver was also confused. He explained what had happened after picking up David, and I roughly pieced it together. Indeed, David's car was still under the subscription, so entering the neighborhood wasn't a problem. As for the lock, it was my fault for not changing the password after getting used to it. By now, David was completely drunk, even snoring. Alexander seemed to understand and didn't give the driver a hard time. We're new tenants. Can you check if you can contact someone else? I'm just a worker. Can you help me out? I've got more rides lined up. I had no choice but to let the driver leave. I know he has a relative here. I'll have them take him away. The driver thanked me profusely and left David with us. While making the call, Alexander and I were in sync, ignoring David lying in the entryway. Luckily, David's family was polite and said they'd come right away. About half an hour later, David's cousin and uncle arrived to take him away. My cousin has no luck. He's always falling for gold-digging vixens. Now that the vixen is gone, he's just drowning in alcohol. The cousin grumbled, clearly annoyed. The uncle, however, was more polite and chatted with me for a bit. Caring elders always side with their children. Even though David was a mess and blind, the uncle still held out hope. But when Alexander walked out shirtless, the uncle awkwardly stopped talking. With the drunk gone, I turned back to Alexander. My shower broke this afternoon. Mr. Alexander, did you dry clean yourself? Was the big boss really playing such a childish game? Alexander, caught red-handed, wasn't embarrassed at all. He simply picked me up. My shower is custom-made. It won't break for 100 years. Want to try it tonight? Alexander's execution was top-notch. He moved me in that very night. To avoid any future slip-ups, Alexander ignored my objections and insisted I not stay in my old place. Not only that, he found a loophole in the contract and helped me get a refund for the remaining 9 months' rent. Is there anything else? Alexander, with his overflowing boyfriend energy, was already holding 2 boxes and wanted to add more. No, just these last 2 boxes. I'll go upstairs to double-check, and then we'll wait for the landlord to collect the keys. Seizing the opportunity, Alexander lightly kissed my cheek. All right, I'll be up soon. Leaving me with a sweet smile, Alexander temporarily left. I went upstairs again to do a final check. A sound came from the living room. Did I forget something? Without even looking, I ran down the stairs. What's wrong? What greeted me wasn't the strong Mr. Alexander but last night's drunken ex. Looking at the empty apartment, David's eyes were filled with longing. I hate Durian, and I hate his longing even more. Are you moving out? Yes, so please don't come here again. The new tenant might just call the police. I answered irritably, still annoyed by his appearance last night. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I shouldn't have liked Luna from the start. She deceived me. She's not even worth your little toe. She's already found another rich guy. She never liked me at all. She was just playing with me. David's eyes were filled with little flames of anger. He was really hurt. It's rare to see Luna exposed by David. What a long time coming. Unfortunately, whether David had truly realized his mistakes or was just at the end of his rope, I didn't care anymore. I'm begging you. Let's get back together, okay? Didn't you always want to get married? Let's get our marriage license next Monday, okay? No, if I listened any longer, I'd really throw up. Stop it, David. Don't make me sick, okay? I held a broom, poking at David's approaching body. To be honest, I'm a gold digger too. But I have better taste than Luna. I went straight to the top and chose the right person. Ahem, that's a bit of an exaggeration. It was Mr. Alexander who had good taste and chose me. Hee. As for you. I looked David up and down with disdain. Finally, I gave him a piece of advice. I suggest you get lost before my boyfriend comes up. By the way, he brought 4 bodyguards to help me move today. With your fatty liver condition, fighting them would be suicidal. The elevator dinged, sounding like a death knell for David. Sweat and shivers mixed as David stumbled away. Soon, Alexander walked in. Someone just ran away really fast. Didn't even take the elevator, just bolted down the emergency stairs. I couldn't hold back my laughter and collapsed onto the floor. Alexander seemed to understand but also didn't. He walked over, picked me up, and formed a natural barrier between me and the floor. It's cold in winter. Don't sit on the floor. There's one thing David didn't know. When I first moved in, I went to the temple with my family to pray. The master there interpreted a lot from the fortune stick I drew. I didn't remember most of the professional terms. But the core message had now come true. When you move out of where you're living now, your marriage luck will begin. Alexander's face, bathed in the sunset, had a golden, gentle beauty. The reality was different from what I imagined, but it was perfect beyond imagination. Monks really don't lie.